Good afternoon and welcome to You and Your Business with me, Alec on 103.2 Dublin City FM. Um, each week I invite an expert from the world of business to share their knowledge, insights and tips to help you with your business challenges. If there's a topic you would like covered or if you feel you can make a contribution, please email me at yourbusiness@dublincityfm.ie and perhaps we'll be having a chat here one day soon. My guest today is the owner of Big Print Small Print. He's got more than 30 years experience in the print industry, and he's also a member of BNI, which we'll talk a bit about later. I'm delighted to introduce Jimmy Moore to You and Your Business studio audience. Hey, Jimmy.
How are you? Great to be here.
Good, it's great to have you. I was just talking about a sector of industry that I do know a bit about, thank goodness, so that'll help me in chatting to you. But take me back to your sort of last year in school. Were you the sort of academic? Had you a plan in mind to where you were going to take yourself?
Well, not really. In fairness, I did my leaving cert in St. Joseph's in Fairview, and my dad was an electrical contractor, so I was not guided by, I was maybe influenced by him, and I decided I'd like to try the electrical engineering side of things. So I applied for, after I did my leaving, I applied for Kevin Street, which is where electrical engineering was done. Right. Got in there, somewhat, not backdoor, but I did an interview with somebody who I didn't quite have the requirements in the leaving cert, but they did a test, an IQ test, and I did quite well on it. And on that basis, after a short interview, he said, "I'll take you." However, not a great, I think perhaps I did need those qualifications that the leaving required, because I did stay a year, but I dropped out of it after a year. Like, it was just
all right. And what was it? I mean, it's interesting for people, and more of my guests find themselves in that situation. They sort of go into college and then discover what they were doing really wasn't what.
It's a good point. I mean, looking back, I'd say if I had that time again, I may have taken a year or two after my leaving, maybe taken a job or gone away and come back and maybe had a better idea of what might suit myself. But I think maybe just doing your leaving cert and then the pressure to, you've got to make a decision about how your future will, the path that you may take. It was a little bit rushed, I would say. Maybe if I had taken a year out and maybe done something, whatever, away from home or something, could have been a good idea, and maybe come back then.
Yeah, get some of it out of your system. That's good. Okay, so you've decided to drop out of that, but travel is on the horizon. So tell us a bit about that and how you got there.
Oh, travel, yeah, I did. The summer I finished in Kevin Street, I went to Germany. I got an offer of a job through Kevin Street in Germany, and I worked there for the summer, and really enjoyed it, and came back, worked with my dad for about a year or so, and then I got an offer of a place as a watchmaker in a watchmaking college in Dublin, in Blanchardstown. It was called the Irish Swiss Institute of Horology. Bit of a mouthful, but that's what it was called. And I spent 3 years there, became a watchmaker, and in the interims, in the summer times, I did go back to Germany, worked in Germany, in Munich, and then when I finished that, I worked in Kilkenny, went down to Kilkenny for about 6 months, worked down there. I left down there.
Well, hang on a sec, Jimmy. Let's take you back a bit. You're running miles ahead of me here on this. Let's put it this way: you got the right job in Germany initially after going for the first time. Just tell our listeners what you were doing over there.
Well, I was working the first year I was there. I worked in a brewery in Munich called Löwenbräu, which was a German. It's a well-known brand. It's the biggest brewery in Bavaria, actually, which is 1/3 the size of Germany. It was the biggest one there, and it was great, really good, really enjoyed it.
And what sort of attracted you to it and working there?
Well, believe it or not, I got the job through Kevin Street. We did a German class in our electrical engineering course. We did one hour a week in German, and the lecturer there just happened to mention that if somebody wanted to go work there for the summer, he could organize it. And so I just said to him, yeah, I'd like to maybe try it. I was about 19 at the time.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, and about a month later, I got a letter from a German employment bureau called the Arbeitsamt, and it was offering me a job in Louvain and also a place to stay and what my wages would be. So it was all, I mean, I had nothing to do except go there and start the job, you know.
And where did you go on your own?
I did indeed, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. There's a sense of adventure. And I'm always saying to people, you know, there's more adventure inside people. You know, you need to do that when you're young.
Yeah.
I mean, while you were there, you'd worked during the summer, but you were going to also head off around Europe and have a bit of a look around.
Yes, I did. After my work there, it was for a 3-month period. I traveled around Europe for about 6 weeks. And then I had booked a flight back. I think I booked a flight around October, November. And when I got back to Munich, I had about a month and a half before the flight. And I got a job in an American Air Force base called McGraw-Lucerne.
But as you do, how did that come about?
Let me just think. I think I went to the Arbeitsamt again, and I think they said there might be work in this American Air Force base. Went out there, and they said there was work in the kitchen, so I worked as a waiter and in the kitchen there, you know, which was grand. You know, it was for 6 weeks, and it paid pretty well. Got paid dollars, so it's since closed up. I think with the, I mean, it was to do with, it was a leftover from the Second World War. You know, in about around the 2000-ish, they just cleared off, you know.
And were there many personnel on the base?
Yeah, there was hundreds and hundreds, I'd say thousands there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
All right, that was interesting. So, okay, so you come back to Ireland. Now let's get back to this whole horological thing. How on earth do you end up going from, you know, working in the kitchens in an Air Force base to taking on a course on watchmaking?
Well, actually, it was something I was wondering, what would I do? And an opportunity arose that it came to my attention that there was a position, again, out in this Irish Swiss Institute of Horology in Blanchardstown. Again, I went for the interview, and it was his name was, can't remember his name, who was the head of the place, but I did an interview with him, and he said, yeah, okay, start. So I started there, and I spent 3 years there.
Right.
And in the summertimes, I went back to Germany, worked in different jobs over there.
And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Jimmy Moore. And Jimmy, I'm just trying to get a handle on this. You know, watchmaking. How on earth do you get attracted into that? Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's not sort of one that kind of comes off the top of your head.
No, I think, looking back, I think I had an uncle who happened to know a TD at the time who knew, you know, it came up, I can't remember, but it sounded good to me that it was a possibility that I might be able to get into it. And I thought, yeah, that would be a good business to try, you know. And he did have he had a few words with this guy, and he said, look, I'll put you in charge or in contact with the head of this institute in Blanchardstown, and that's how I got an introduction, had an interview with him, and he accepted me. So that's how I got into it. I mean, it was sort of
right. It just shows you the power of networking, which you were learning early on in your life.
Yes, true, very true. And when I finished, I went down to work in Kilkenny, got a job in Kilkenny down in the jewelers down near Roth's house, which is just on High Street in Kilkenny. Yes. And that was good for a while, but I would say I decided to come back to Dublin, and I had a small business there. When I came back, I worked in my dad's house. We had a place out the back, and I worked there, and I did some work for a couple of jewelers around Dublin.
Right.
3 or 4. I did them for about a year, I'd say. But
what did you learn from that? I mean, because this is typical of what happens to many people. They develop a skill set, but are never taught about running a business.
Yeah.
So how did you find that?
I found it, to be honest, I was very inexperienced. I found it very isolating too. I was isolated. I just worked on my own, little or no contact other than with the clients that I had. But I did sign 1 or 2. I did sort of get involved with 1 or 2 companies, in very experienced jewelers. Right. And the sort of watchmaking business was such that It was a service that jeweler shops offered because they were selling watches, but it was never a money-making enterprise for them. It was something that they had to supply with the goods they were selling. So they didn't particularly they didn't make money from it. They didn't particularly want to pay a lot of money for the service, and I found that out. And after a year, it wasn't a great money making business at all. So there was again there was a job came up that was allied to the skills I had, which was a dental drill. It was a manufacturer out in Cookstown Industrial Estate, and they were looking for people like myself who had watchmaking skills. And so I went, got a job there, and the money was very good. So I sort of left the watchmaking behind me then, you know.
Yeah. And in terms of working with this company, I suppose what they were looking for people who had a steady hand and
Steady hand, yeah.
with small components.
Yes, that was literally small components, very delicate. So yeah, it was a well-paid job. So it was a break from the sort of the grind of working on my own, you know.
All right. So you were going to spend some time there, but what else was on your mind? You know, you weren't going to stop there.
No, I suppose again something else came up. I was offered to get into the print industry with a good friend of mine, a chap called Les Caprani. He offered that I go work with him because somebody had left him. And I said, yeah, okay. And I was in my mid-20s at that stage. But went to work with him out in Blackrock and spent 5 or 6 years out there, I would say, learning the business. And then around that time, there was a Donnelly visa. I don't know if you recall. There was
I do. I'm old enough, Jimmy. I'm old enough to remember.
And myself and my wife, we said, okay, let's try this. Maybe we'll go to America. And so we did get one, and we went to America. We went to Connecticut and worked in the print business there. And we were there for about a year and a half. But we had a couple of young kids, and we decided that they were about to start school. Actually, it was more me that I decided. I think my wife would have maybe liked to stay there, but decided to come back. And I mean, I was back here about 8-9 months, and myself and Les decided to set up together with a company called the Scanning Shop.
All right. In terms of printing in the States, what was different over there? How did you find sort of printing? I presume it was lighter printing. So what was the difference between what they were doing, what you were doing here, or was it very similar?
It was very similar, actually. I must say, the skill set we had here was, you know, you were required to do 3 or 4 different types of jobs in the pre-press, what was called pre-press. Right. Over there, they had people who just did one of those 4 or 5 skills.
All right.
Darkroom camera work, you'd have one guy doing it. Photographic makeup, you'd somebody else. Retouching, somebody else would do. But we did all that here in Dublin. But
so you're very adaptable then, yeah.
Yeah, it was probably more skilled here than in America, but it was more streamlined over there. And we were called, actually, it was called photographic makeup here. They called it stripping, film stripping. So that's what I did over there. But we came back after I think it was about a year or so. And about 9 months back here, I moved back to the company that I had gone out with. They had a sister company in Connecticut. Moved back here. But then myself and Les Caprani set up a company called the Scanning Shop.
All right.
And we were, I suppose, I must have been 12 years there, and then we also got into plate making for.
All right, and this is for the print industry.
Yeah,
for our listeners there, just from a technical point of view, for our listeners, this is a point in time where between sort of people wanting design created and the actual finished item being printed, there was an in-between section which was called origination. And that was made up of putting together images and text and things. And that's where you were, Jimmy.
Yeah, exactly. And then we would take that image and that film and we would make plates. So we set that up, and I looked after that for a couple of years to a point where it became a really good business. And myself and Les, we decided we would, I would take over that side of things. Right. We moved to where we presently are, down here in Finglas. And about 12 years ago, we set up Big Print, Small Print, which it was allied to the plating, and it was the way things were going. So we set that up,
Right.
and I mean, since then, the plate making is a business that was good up to about 3 years ago. We've now finished with it. It's
Yeah.
sort of defunct, you know.
I mean, I suppose one of the big challenges in the whole industry section, Jimmy, was a sort of tsunami of technology hit it in terms of, particularly in your sector, in the origination, where that sector virtually got taken out
Yeah,
as people went from direct from computer to plate.
exactly. I was going to say that you know, we sort of just kept ahead of the posse a little bit. That we moved into where we had roll tops for, we had work that we did on a bench, then went on to a computer. So we got computers, and then we got plate setters for making plates, which were done automatically rather than by hand, which we did previously. So we stayed, but eventually plate making became, I mean, with the onset and arrival of digital printing, it got rid of the plates as well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what were you really looking at as an industry that was completely disrupted, to use a modern day term? And so everybody would have been scrambling around trying to find the next thing to fill in for
yeah,
a sector that was literally taken out over a period of a couple of years.
yeah. I mean, I'll give you an example. About 15 years ago or so, I remember doing a bit of a purge where we decided, let's try and get some new clients. We went to the Golden Pages, and I remember turning about 12 leaves. So that'd be about 24 pages in the Golden Pages, and it was to do with print. And before we eventually, the last time we did that, there was only two leaves.
Wow.
About 3 years later, or 4 years later, in the latest edition of the Golden Page, there was only two leaves, and that was the sum total of the print. And now the Golden Pages is gone. It's gone digital.
Even it's obsolete.
Yeah, it's obsolete, so it's gone as well. So, and I mean, it all went digital or went on the web. You know, a lot of it went on the web.
Yeah. And if you're just joining us now, you're listening to You and Your Business with me, Alec Drew, on 103.2 Dublin City FM, where my studio guest today is Jimmy Moore. I suppose we're just lamenting the demise of the print sector in certain areas, but this is technology and evolution on it. You were going to have to find a new place to be. So big print, small print, maybe tell our listeners a bit about how technology was used to take you into a new, I suppose, offering in the print sector.
Yeah, well, you know, when we were doing plate making, it was necessary to do a digital proof for people from the point of view, you give the plates and this proof to a printer so that he could match this proof with the plates. And we had a particular machine to do that, but equally you could use it for just outputting a large format poster, you know. So, and we did that on occasions, and we saw an opportunity that we could develop this somewhat with the demise of the plating, that we could develop the large format printing. And that's what we did 12 years ago. And we invested in other machines. And again, it was a case of that we really had to, we could see the demise of the plating. We wanted to make sure that we had a business, you know, when it did go. And so we have basically bought all the machinery we have in the last 10 years. And thank God it's been a good business for the last 10 years, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you fit into a particular area of print, which a lot of people wouldn't be familiar with, and you also supply to the print industry.
Yeah.
Talk a bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's we had a client list when we were doing the plate making of printers out there, you know, and we supplied them with plates. So it was a natural thing that book of clients, we offered the service of large format printing to those people. But strictly speaking, we were wholesalers to the print industry. The product we sold to them, they in turn sold on to their clients. In other words, they took in clients at the high street. Yes, we do large format, and they would send us the files, and we would output and send them back. And so we were basically wholesalers. So about 3 years ago, obviously to try and expand the business, we wanted to get high street customers. So we joined BNI, and that allowed us to do that. So, I mean, we now have 2 strands or 3 strands to our business, and there's our traditional clients who are wholesale. We sell wholesale to, and then we have new clients who are basically high street clients, that end user clients.
Yes. And quite interesting, again, the sort of transformation in the business. I suppose you would have filled a gap that was taken up normally by screen printers, where that was the only way of getting a large format
That's right.
in
Yeah.
terms of print. But technology has kind of superseded them. I'm sure there's still a specific role for them, but your technology has superseded a lot of what screen printers would have done, which would have been very expensive at the time because it's a lot of handwork involved.
Exactly, and that's true. I mean, there are still some people. There's 1 or 2 specialize in screen printing, and for fabric, it's very, very good. For screen printing is very good for that. So there is a market still for that, but a lot of screen printers have gone by the wayside, and I suppose the work we do did see. I mean, what silk screens printers used to print, we can do, and we've won some of their business.
Yeah, and you can also do it for far less money than typically a screen printer would have done.
Screens have to be manufactured, and they were very expensive.
Yeah, and also the detail. I mean, the technology that you're using now, and it's just I'm reasonably familiar with it, is now that the quality is getting better and better. And I suppose for our listeners' point of view, maybe you might help them about the advantages of digital printing for short runs and things like that.
Yeah, well, exactly. With the onset of digital printing, it's a bit like getting on a bus. If you want to, previously, let's call litho printing. It was a case of, if you would get on a bus going to Cork, you paid, say 50 whatever euros going to Cork. If you wanted to go to Naas, it was still very expensive to do that. Well, digital printing has given you the option of getting to Naas for 5 euros. In other words, you pay proportionately. Previously, litho printing is very expensive, setup costs. So, if you wanted 100 of something, it would cost you as much nearly as 5,000.
Yeah.
So the initial costs were very expensive, and digital printing allows people order small amounts in a quick turnaround, with the cost being very not prohibitive at all.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you did something for me there recently, which was very inexpensive, but it was the ability for me to order, say, 40 or something.
40, yeah, exactly.
Which in olden days, it just was prohibitive to even contemplate it.
Yeah.
Would you like to, again, to tell our listeners a bit about the advantage of being able to personalize things?
Yeah, that's another aspect of digital printing that, again, it was never possible in litho printing. It was a case of, you made a set of plates and that image stayed, and you printed 1,000 or 10,000. You couldn't change it unless you changed the plates, which was very expensive. But with the technology now, there's different softwares where you can change numbers, you can use numbering, you can change names on a database. You just program it in, and every sheet can come out with a different name on it if you require, with addresses or headings that can change. So that's how technology has changed in the print industry.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is that you can have a beautiful brochure created, but print just a one-off for somebody, or you could run 20 of them with different names on them.
Yeah, it's a huge development in printing. I mean, printing traditionally over nearly 100 or more years was very much the same. I mean, 100 years ago was very similar to what happened 20 years ago, but it's totally changed now.
Another side of this, again, for our listeners, is all about exhibitions and displays. I mean, people are getting the opportunity to put their business in a showcase area, and it would have been prohibitive in terms of cost to generate any sort of promotional banners and things around them. Talk a bit about that for a minute.
Yeah, well, what we do a lot, I mean, for example, we can do curryboard signs, if somebody wants a point of sale, anything like that, window decals, all one-offs, or if you want 5 of something, pull-up banners, which are, again, very versatile. And I'm not saying they're cheap, but certainly they're very affordable.
Hmm. Well, again, and for a lot of people, it would have been prohibitive for particularly a very small company to promote themselves in any sort of way, and now they've access to it. You might remind our listeners where they can find out more about you.
Yeah, well, the company is called Big Print Small Print. We have a website. It's www.bigprintsmallprint.ie, or you can email myself, jimmy@bigprintsmallprint.ie.
No, that's fantastic. Again, as we come close to the end of the show, let's just talk about networking for a bit. We discovered that in the course of your life's journey. We've talked about how you got to Germany and how you got into watchmaking. Talk about the influence of networking and how important it is for business.
It really is. As I say, I've been 3 years in BNI, and it has been really, really good. What we chose to do, as I said, we were wholesalers, and we chose that we needed a new, let's say, avenue where we would go down, because there was a lot of printers. Well, a number of printers were closing down, so we did need new clients, and BNI has really afforded us that opportunity, and it has worked very, very well for myself, and the company's been really good. So we have the networking is brilliant, in that people we meet once a week every Tuesday, and basically we ask, we talk about what we require, and we listen to other people what they require, and we try and help them, and they try and help me.
Yeah, so it's a very structured networking type situation that you've certainly found beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. It's been very, very good.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to finish the show. A special thanks to our guest today, Jimmy Moore, Big Print Small Print, and you'll find them at bigprintsmallprint.ie. Thanks also to Sam on Sound. The podcast today's show will be available on dublincityfm.ie from tomorrow. Thank you for your company, and please remember to join me, Alec Drew, again next week at the same time, 1 o'clock, right here on 103.2 Dublin City FM for another edition of You and Your Business.